Hi guys, this is Jamie, Permaculture Yogi, and today we're going to do some propagation. So there's a few ways we can propagate. One is to do by seed. We can seed into trays like we're going to do today, or you can direct seed into your garden. And the other way we can propagate is by cuttings. And there's a few reasons why I would choose to do some things by cuttings and some things by seed, and I'll explain that a little bit later in the video. So let's start with different components that we will put into our media, our growing media. So this here is vermiculite. It's a compound, it's very spongy. The idea is that it holds a lot of moisture, so it retain a lot of moisture. Perlite is another material that we'll use in propagating. This has the advantage of that it'll hold a lot of moisture, and also it's coarse, so it'll create space in the growing media as well. This is a pre-mixed seed raising mix. It's got things like pine bark and sand and composted material. So that's also a great growing media. So I'm going to make my seed raising mix a bit more coarse and increase its water holding capacity. Okay, so let's have a look at the cutting material. We've prepared our mix into a pot here, and I want to show you two types of cuttings. We have what's called a soft tip cutting, and that is the younger part of the shoot, the new shoot. So I'd say from here to about here is our soft tip cutting, and then from the same cutting you might get, if you have a decent enough cutting, you can get a soft tip and then a semi-hardwood cutting. So the soft tip cutting is a new shoot, and that is best to take in spring coming into summer. The best chance of propagating from that. And your semi-hardwood is best in late summer going into autumn. And you would take another type of cutting which is called hardwood cutting in winter, and that's more for deciduous trees and plants that are from a colder climate. So to start, you strip back the material, and I'll take a cutting here. So that's my semi-hardwood, and then from the same cutting, just be careful where you pinch, I'll strip these back here, and that is my soft tip cutting. So this is lavender, and to dibble these in, I use a paddle pop stick or a pencil, and I simply create a hole and push that in. Now you can use rooting hormone on these as well, that will help. Something like lavender goes really easy. Anything like lavender, rosemary, sage, salvias, you'll be able to get them going really easy. That's one of the reasons why I propagate these plants, because they're so easy to do, and it's a really entry-level way to get into propagating. So I will continue like that later. So what we have here is some lavender that I propagated a couple of days ago. That's getting going. This is the rosemary. This is a sage here. So basically they just need regular water once or twice a day. If you want to put them in a container where it will hold in the humidity, they're called propagation chambers. You can just use like a plastic box that you get from Bunnings or something like that, and that will hold in the humidity. You just need to make sure you get enough water to them, and if you are doing that, don't put it in direct sunlight. It doesn't want, for roots to grow, you don't really need direct sunlight. You just need to grow. Roots will start to grow at each of these nodes, 1, 2, 3, 4 different nodes there, and basically once the roots start to grow and it's starting to become more vigorous, then you can put it out in the sun. However, these grow so easily, I put them just in my normal nursery. I don't really put them in a little propagation chamber, so you can see how you go with that. So that's my lavender done. You can probably fit somewhere from 15 to 20 different cuttings in a pot this size. I've mixed my soft tip and my semi-hardwood cuttings. Commonly people would just do a soft tip cuttings in a separate pot and then a hardwood, semi-hardwood cutting. I'm mixing them all together and just seeing how they go. So once the roots start to grow out of the bottom, I know that they're ready. Also, if I pull on them, they'll be firm in, and that's when I know they'll be ready. And from that point, I can just take everything out of the pot completely, separate them individually, and pot them up individually. And if I get 100% accuracy, I'll get 15 lavender plants. Pop that in there, and give it a good water in. So the next form of propagation is by seed, and I'm using these type of seedling trays here. So there's when you get your seedlings from your local hardware store or wherever you get them from, they'll come in something like this. I really recommend you keep them. These are a bit beaten up, as you can see, but they're still really handy. So what I do is I simply put my mixture in. I'm just using potting mix here. Now, technically I should be using seed raising mix. The main difference between potting mix and seed raising mix, seed raising mix doesn't have any nutrients. It doesn't have any fertility in it. So with my seed raising mix, that you don't want fertility, you just want to get a seed to germinate, or you want root development on a cutting. However, once the seeds do germinate, it will then try to take in nutrients. So in something like annual seeds where they germinate quite quickly, I don't mind having fertility in there. So once the seed has germinated, it's ready to take up the nutrients that are in my potting mix. So get your seeds here, and what I then do is press down. So just a little, make sure each area is firm, and then I'll go through and plant my seeds. Just be careful that they don't all come out at once. And what I'm going to do is plant 1 or 2 seeds in each one, and then I can just thin it out. So this one here is rocket. So basically you don't want the seeds to be too deep down. Basically the rule of thumb is the same width as a seed is the depth that you'll plant it, which is obviously you're not going to measure that, are you? So just roughly. So then I'll mark it down and date it. So what I like to do is 4 different areas. So I'll do that line of one thing. I'll do, say, broccoli on this one. I'm going to do thyme and mustard green. So I'll just do them like that. If you're doing a lot of seedlings, then you probably use a whole tray for one. But I like to have the option and the variety. To water it in, just make sure you use a high micron hose attachment or watering can. Basically you want it to be soft water like that. You don't want it to be too hard. So I just give it a gentle water in. So why it needs to be soft? If it was too hard, I'd displace all the seeds that I've just planted. I'd squirt them away. So just want it to be nice and soft. So I hope that gives you some ideas on how to propagate from cutting or by seed. The key points with your propagation is you need to get enough water to it, but at the same time you don't want it to become waterlogged. So you want to have a nice mix in your growing media, and then just give it a go.